So when I start seeing the concentrated poverty that we saw, and you have waiting lists with people that are making 100, 150,000, 75,000, 200, you name it, lined up just dying to get in to live in those communities, the ones that the secretary described, then I'll say maybe there's something there. But until that happens, I don't know why they would be advocating for families to live in those kinds of communities. And when people ask me that question, what I typically do is, there's a lady in the audience. Dovey, are you still here? I thought I saw you when I came in. Please stand up for a moment. There is Dovey Newell. And the secretary didn't know she was here, or he would have said, that's whose home he slept in Techwood Homes, when he came down to visit. I will tell you the very best way to respond to that question is to say, ask a Dovey Newell why they took a role as a leader in the community, as one of the residents that lived in Techwood Homes, to say, hell no, it's time we get rid of this garbage. And so when the advocates come out, I send them to see Dovey. She usually uses choice words. Lastly, I'll take a little bit more privilege since I have the mic. Rick, you know I can't follow a script. And I'll say the following, and I hate sitting up here as the head of Integral, and we were the private side of the public-private partnership, or part of the private side of the public-private partnership when we were doing Centennial Place. Truth is, we were making it up as we went along. We really didn't know what we were doing, and I mean that seriously. We all knew how to develop, but we were doing something that was just totally outside the box, because we were trying to transform communities beyond the physical and the financial and so on, and integrate a human outcome in ways that we had never done it before. And Norman said to me at dinner one night when we were in the planning stages, he said, you know, you engineering, financial, and development types will get all the physical stuff right, but you will totally miss on the sociology unless you have a clear strategy around schools, human services, and so on, because transforming the people is going to be the hardest part, because we as a country have institutionalized a population sometimes for generation. And we can take credit or blame for that, whether we like it or not. So I hate standing up here for one main reason, because I was with the Integral Group. I started the Integral Group. This was a major initiative for us, but I was one of the individuals. There are 3 or 4 other Integral people that were here when the whole concept was being thought up on a blank sheet of paper. There was nothing there, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to do that. And I want them to stand and be recognized. And I see Vicki Lundy Wilbon, who was the project executive for Integral at the time. I see Valerie, who was her boss in driving that project. And is Eric here? Eric Pinkney. And all 3 of those lovely people were many times thrown out of a lot of meetings with me when we were talking about doing this, and people thought, well, you bloody developers coming in here to steal our land and do this and do that. Y'all can pack up and get the hell out of here and go back where you came from. And we got thrown out of many, many, many meetings. So they were in the bullseye along the way. Lastly, I see Cynthia Kuhlman here. And I know Doc would have said something about Cynthia, but when Centennial Place Elementary was created, everyone knows a good school is dependent upon having the right principal. And Cynthia Kuhlman led that charge, recruited every single teacher, and called them out by name in a meeting when she was introducing me. I'm talking about 60 people. And she just went down person by person saying, the reason I like this person is I saw in their bio that they had done such and such and such. And she did that one by one, 60 people, never looking at a piece of paper. She drank the Kool-Aid and took it from there and actually helped to create that single most important economic development engine in the entire Centennial Place community, which is Centennial Place Elementary School. So Rick, I'm sure I'll take some more license along the way.
That's all
but
right.
Okay.
You asked me if you had to make a speech tonight, and I told you no. But
Okay.
I'm going to ask a question on the flip side of the coin, and it's while that may have been from an advocate's perspective, I'm going to ask one from a NIMBY perspective, not in my backyard perspective. Since 1995, more than 10,000 people have moved from traditional public housing projects to other locations, usually by using housing coupons or Section 8, that allows them to continue to pay reduced rent in privately owned properties, sometimes multifamily apartments, but oftentimes single-family homes in traditional neighborhoods. What would you say to the commonly held concern expressed that individuals who have lived their lives in public housing are unprepared to live in mixed-income communities or in privately owned housing in traditional neighborhoods?
All right, well, I'll take that question. The wonderful thing about the relocation process is that it really creates an opportunity to do triage, because when you have concentrated poverty, often the problems are masked because people have been there sometimes for generations. And what we found is most families with some support, and the support provided by Hope and her team and others, really put the families into a whole new trajectory. And I would say 90+% of the families are prepared to be good neighbors with support. And again, coming back to the administration of the Section 8 program, it is incumbent upon us not to reconcentrate the families in areas, because the fact of the matter is that concentrated poverty, regardless of whether it's a public housing design or a multifamily conventional design, it will result in the same types of phenomena, because the predators of society will prey on situations that they see as being hopeless. And so it's the dance that we have to engage in and do, and much of the coaching and counseling and the human services work that is done, which I see as an investment in the families, is working with the families in terms of encouraging work and success and those types of things. I want to say one thing about standard setting. You know, the worst thing that we can do as a society is set the bar low. Because what we say to families is that you aren't worth the trouble. And nobody wants to live in a community where there are no rules. So this whole notion of having high standards, of doing thoughtful screening, of setting a work requirement in place, all of those things have helped. You know, we've had so many testimonials where families have said, I needed that extra push so that I could regain the dignity in my life, because that was not there before. And so it's all of these things coming together, and the community embracing the families. So it does not necessarily follow that crime will occur just because a family who needs assistance in paying their rent will drive that. But it takes very thoughtful administration, high standards, and supporting and investing in the families so that they can be successful. And I believe that's why we have been able to move as many families, and families who found good arrangements as we have, with all those things working together. And let me hasten to say, it's still a work in progress, and we're continuing to work to support the families as well as improve the administration of the voucher program.